Hello there, thanks for stopping by Max's Cards and Dice Dugout. This is episode 140. And before we get to tonight's game, just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed and supported the channel. Excuse me, I reached 300 subscribers yesterday. I hit 300 over the weekend, but lost someone. I do lose a subscriber here and there every so often, but we've been at 300 for a couple days now, and hopefully it'll stay there and continue to grow. So once again, just wanted to thank everyone who supports the channel, and let's continue to have fun, because that's what this is all about. Okay, so as you can see, we got Downey Games Momentum Football on the table. I think this is a really great game. I've decided to add another project to my rotation, and it's going to be a playthrough of the 1968 Minnesota Vikings season. Reluctant to call it replay because I will be using the game mechanics, which could change who the starting quarterback is for the game. But I am going to use that. So I'm reluctant to call it a replay. Now, you might be wondering why the Minnesota Vikings. Well, it's because of one player. And his name was Ed Shirachman. He's from my hometown. And he played his entire career with the Vikings. Not a Hall of Famer, but a well-respected and well-known defensive back. He played cornerback for the Vikings for 12 years, from 1961 to 1972. Played in Super Bowl IV when the Vikings were celebrating their 50th anniversary back in 2021. He was selected to be one of the 50 all-time great Vikings, which was quite an honor. And he's third all-time in interceptions for the team, trailing only Paul Krause and Bobby Bryant. So some pretty good company there. So before we get started with the game, let's just take a look at the schedule. I made this graphic up here. We're going to do just the regular season, so it's 14 games. And you can see the Vikings in real life were 8-6 that season. Mentioning, I didn't mention why 1968. Well, that's because although I think, excuse me, allergies, ragweed. Although I really think Momentum Football is another great game from Downey, there is one of the minor negatives, I would say, is the availability of older seasons. There's not many from the 60s for either the NFL or AFL, nor for the 70s. As far as doing a Vikings playthrough that features Ed Shirachman, I would have probably preferred 1970 or 69, but that was their Super Bowl year. But 70, I think, was even a better team. Who went quietly in the playoffs in the first round, I believe, against the 49ers. So anyway, so let's get to the game. I'm gonna, this might be a little slow because I played a few practice games, but the rules are still not 100% with the rules yet, so please bear with me. Okay, so the first thing we're going to have to do is select our starting quarterbacks. Oh, and I did not mention, I have the team charts off camera here on clipboards, but we'll be getting information from here as we play this game. You've probably have seen Dave Gardner's replays on this. He does a great job, and it was one of the reasons why I wanted to tackle this. Now, the rules say that you can complete a game in about 15 minutes, and I do believe that is true. However, I'm going to be going a little bit slower here on video. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is select the Falcons quarterback, and I'm going to roll the red and white die, reading the red die first. And we get a 22, so it's going to be Randy Johnson, so I'm going to write that up here. Okay, and let's see who's starting for the Vikings. It's either going to be Joe Cap or Gary Kuzo. Most likely Joe Cap. And yes, it is. Okay, the Falcons have only one kicker and one punter. However, the Vikings have two punters, so we have to select the punter for the Vikings. And that's a 16, and that will be King Hill. So for Minnesota, I'll just put a comma, Hill. Okay. So we got our quarterbacks and our punter for the Vikings. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is determine this defensive control factor. So what I'm going to mark here record coming into this game. Okay, being the first game, there is no record. All right, so we're going to determine the defensive control factor, which will determine which chart we look at to resolve the drives. This is a drive-by-drive game, but it does have provisions to calculate stats for the game. It's a bit involved, so I'll be doing that off camera. Once again, excuse me. Okay, so first we're going to determine the defensive control factor that will affect Atlanta. Okay, so their offensive grade is an E, and the Vikings' defensive grade is a B. So there's a chart here you look at. So Atlanta's offense is an E, and the Vikings' defense is a B. So that means on a roll of a 2 to 6 or a 10 to 12, when Atlanta has the ball, we will read the result from the Vikings' defensive drive results. Okay, and the Vikings' offense is a D compared to an E defense. And coming over here, we see that that's a 2 to 5. So anything but a 2 to 5 is going to come from the Vikings' offensive drive results. When they have the ball, on a roll of a 2 to 5, we'll take the reading from Atlanta's defense. Okay, so another thing we need to look at is the home field advantage to start the game. Minnesota is a 0, so the momentum is going to start at 0. So, okay, we're ready for the kickoff. And I'm going to use a red die for the Falcons, blue die for the Vikings. Highest die gets the ball first. Tie will go to the home team. And it's going to be Atlanta. Okay, so Atlanta's going to get the ball first quarter. Now, kickoffs always elapse, according to the rules, always elapse one time. Kickoffs and their return. So we make one X on the game clock. Now, there's one other thing I need to do here. And I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, I need to mention this. There is no possibility for a kickoff or a punt return for a TD for Atlanta. So we don't even have to check that for them for the entire game. The Vikings, however, do have a slight opportunity to return a punt for a touchdown, and it would be Charlie West who would do that if that would happen, if that situation presents itself. Okay, so we're going to roll all 4 die for the drive, and here we go. All right, so we read the red and white together and the yellow and blue. We read the yellow and blue to determine the defense control factor. But before we do that, we got to take the highest die and the lowest die. In this case, 6 and 1 for 7. 6, 7, and mark that off on the game clock. Now I'm using the optional rule where you add up the die then. That'd be 10, 16, 17. Add it to the next available clock. So the time is going to be 12:37. And now we'll read the drive results. Okay, so we got a 6 and a 4. That's a 10. So that falls in the defensive control factor for Minnesota. So we're going to be reading the result from Minnesota's defensive drive results, and that's a 16. And a 16 is an interception. Now, Minnesota does have the possibility of having an interception returned for a touchdown, and it would be on a roll of 11-13 on the red and white die. Okay, so that didn't happen. All right, so we're going to determine who intercepted the ball. It's a 23, and that's going to be Paul Krause. And he returned that. I have to look that up. Well, it really doesn't matter because the only person that can return it for a touchdown is Bobby Bryant. So it's an interception for Paul Krause, no score. And an interception is a momentum-changing event, so we move over to a +1 for Minnesota. So the next drive is going to be for the Vikings. Still in the first quarter. We're going to roll all 4 die. And we have a 6 and a 1 for 7 more off the game clock. And that would be 6, 8, 11. That would be 10 minutes and 11 seconds. And let's see, we have a 7 in the blue and yellow die. So that on a roll of a 7, that's where momentum comes into play. And right now the momentum is favoring the Vikings. So we're going to read from the Vikings offensive drive results. And we have a 31. And a 31 is a punt. Now, as I mentioned, Atlanta does not have the ability to return a punt, and that does not change momentum. So it'll be Atlanta's next possession. And I failed to mention, in real life, the Vikings won this game 47-7. So we'll write that here and see how close we get to that. Okay, Atlanta's next drive here in the first quarter. And let's see, we got a 6 and a 1 for 7 more off the clock. And 11, 12, 14, so that would be 7:54 in the first quarter. The control die is reading a 3, so that's going to come from Minnesota's defensive result, and we got a 65. And a 65 is a touchdown pass. That's a TD pass. And that's going to be Johnson. 2. And I'm going to re-roll the die. All right. And that's a 62. And a touchdown pass. We look at TD, and it's Tom Hall. If the blue and yellow die were doubles, we would have the potential for a long return. But in this case, you just add them up, and it's a 7-yard touchdown. All right, so now we have to kick the extra point. And extra point is made on an 11-62, and it's good. So Pat is good, and the Falcons lead 7-0. So that's a momentum-changing play. We go back to 0. Minnesota is going to get the ball, and it'll still be in the first quarter. They trail 7-0. All right, and on this roll, we got a 6 and a 4 for 10. And we got a 10, 20. So any rolls greater than 19 and 20 would be 0, so it's going to be 420 on the time. And let's see, the defense control factor is a 9. That does not fall within the Falcons' range, so we're going to be reading from the Vikings offensive chart, and a 65 is a touchdown pass. So the Vikings come right back and score. And we'll roll again to see who that was. Let's see. So those aren't the same. It's going to be a 9-yard touchdown from Joe Cap to, on a 33, it's going to be Gene Washington. And we'll check the pat for Fred Nerf Ball Cox. He's good on an 11 to 65. And it's up and good, and we are tied at 7. Actually, that was wrong, because it was a visitor 7. But we're tied at 7 now, and momentum once again shifts to the Vikings. All right, so there's 4:20 to go in the first quarter, and we're tied at 7. All right, so this next drive for Atlanta is going to be a 5 and a 3 for 8. And that's 10, 14, 17. That would be 157 in the first. And let's see, what do we have? We have a 7 on the blue and yellow die, so that's where momentum comes into play. Right now, momentum favors the Vikings, so we're going to be reading from their defensive chart, and it's a field goal attempt. Field goal attempt, and the field goal kicker is Bob Etter. For Atlanta. And he makes his field goal on 11 to 41. And it's good, and we have to determine the distance of the field goal. So we'll roll all 4 die. Multiply the red and white, so that's 30. And add the blue and yellow, that's 38. And then you add 17, that would be 48-55. However, Etter's long field goal for the season is 45 yards, and you can never exceed that. You can on a miss, but not on a make. So that's a 45-yard field goal. And Falcons take the lead 10-7. And a field goal made, if it gives you the lead, changes momentum. So momentum goes back to 0. So next possession for the Vikings. Trailing 10-7 here in the first. The first winds down. We got a 5 and a 1 for 6. And that's going to take us right to the end of the first quarter. Actually, it's going to take us into the second quarter. So we don't mark the 15 for the second quarter. That's why it's grayed out here. But we got 5, 7, 12. So it's going to be in the second quarter 14:52. So this is very early in the second quarter. 14:52. And we get a 3, which does fall within Atlanta's defense. So 54, we're going to read from Atlanta's defensive chart, and it's a touchdown run. And let's see who that was. And the touchdown run is 45. That's going to be Clint Jones. And it's going to be an 8-yard run. So that'd be Jones. 8 yards. And check the point after from Fred Cox. And he's good on everything but 66, and it's good. So now it's the Vikings 14-10. So in the first quarter, we had 10 for Atlanta, 7 for the Vikings. All right, so that is momentum changer. So we move back over to the plus side, and Atlanta will get the ball again. And I've been forgetting to mark off, other than the opening kickoff, I've been forgetting to mark off one time tick for the kickoffs. So we'll mark that one now, and we'll start from there. I missed one or two, but as I said, I'm liable to make a few mistakes here. Okay, so here we are in the second period. The Vikings leading 14-10. Atlanta has the ball. We got a 6 and a 1, 7 off the clock. 1, 2, 7, 11, 16, 17. So that would be 12, 17. And let's see, we got an 11. So that falls in the Vikings defense control factor. So we'll be looking at 15 on the Vikings defense result, and it's a fumble. Okay, there's no opportunity for a fumble return for a touchdown for the Vikings, but we'll determine who recovered the fumble. It's a 63, and that's going to be Jim Lindsay. And we remain 14-10. The fumble does increase momentum for the Vikings, so they're at a +2. All right, moving on. Next possession in the second. And we got a 5 and a 1. So for 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got 10, 11, 12. So that'd be at 10 minutes and 12 seconds. We have a 2 on the defensive control factor, so we're going to be reading a 55 from Atlanta's defense, and it's another touchdown run for the Vikings. And let's see who scored that. 42. Bill Brown. And that was a 2-yard run, so he punches it in near the goal line. And EAT from Fred Cox. Good on everything but 66. It's up and good. And now the Vikings lead 21-10. That's a momentum-changing play, but they're already at a +2, so that remains there. Can't get any greater than that. And next possession for Atlanta. Mark one off for the kickoff. And we have a 4. So that's going to fall within the Vikings defense. And we have a 61. And a 61 is a touchdown run. Oh, well, first we got to do the time, right? 6 and 1 is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And as mentioned, it's 4. Falls within Vikings defense. 61 on the Vikings defense is a touchdown run, but let's see what the time is to 6, 8, 11. And that'd be 7:31. And it's a touchdown run for the Falcons. And let's see who scored that. 52. Bob Berry. And that was a 4-yard run. And we'll check the point after from Bob Etter. He's good, 11-62, and it's good. So it's now 17 for Atlanta, 21 for the Vikings. That is a momentum-changing play, so now we're down to a single plus for the Vikings with momentum. And they're going to get their next possession here, so we'll mark one off for the kickoff since it can't be returned. And we get a 4. That falls within the defensive control factor for Atlanta, and a 22 is a quarterback sack. So let's figure out the time here. First, I'm forgetting to do that. So we got a 3 and a 1 for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4, 7, 8. That'd be 5:48. And we're not recording sacks because they weren't recorded back in 1968. I believe it was 82 when they finally started to record that stat. But we get a QB sack. And this is one that I got to look at, because I haven't had it happen too many times. QB sack. Quarterback has been sacked for a loss, and the offense must punt as a direct result. And really, we're just gonna, since there is no sack control, sorry about that, since there I said sack control, since there is no punt return for a touchdown, we're just going to determine the how far back the sack occurred, and it was 6 yards. All right, so QB sack, 6 yards, loss. Score remains 21-17 in favor of the Vikings, but the momentum shifts for Atlanta. It's now at 0. And we're in the second quarter. I'm going to roll again. And let's see, we got a 5 and a 2 for 7. $320 plus 10, 16 would be $336. Is the time. We got a 6 on the blue and yellow, so that falls within Minnesota's defensive control factor. And it's a 55. And 55 is a field goal attempt. And let's see. I'm going to roll the dice again. Eder makes a field goal on an 11-41. And he rolls a 43, so it's no good. Score remains 21-17, and a missed field goal is a momentum changer. So Minnesota's going to get the ball back here with not much time left in the first half. Got a 6 and 3 for 9 marks. Just going to get this drive in. 12, 15, 18, 38 seconds. With 38 seconds remaining in the first half. We got a 9. So that falls outside of Atlanta's defensive control factor. So we're going to read 36 from Minnesota's offense. And it's a key penalty. Haven't had many of these either. So the drive has been halted or kept alive by a crucial penalty call on a key third down play. The penalty call is always in favor of the team currently holding momentum. That would be the Vikings. So it's on the defense. If the penalty is against the defense, the offense receives a free die roll. The defensive control factor is ignored on the reroll, and the result is automatically taken from the offensive team chart. So let's see what we get here. Get a 23, and it's a quarterback sack. If the new dice roll results in another key penalty, the new drive result is always taken from the offensive chart, regardless of DCF implications. The time elapsed on continuation of the drive is equal to the sum of the lowest 2 die from the reroll. Okay, the lowest 2 die from the reroll is a 3, and that's going to end the half. So there was a key penalty which gave the Vikings another play, but it resulted in a QB sack. to end the half. And that's going to shift momentum back to 0. As a matter of fact, I think momentum goes to 0 to start the second half. Regardless. Let me look at that again. Well, I think that's true. Although the quarterback sack may actually move it in favor of Atlanta. I believe that's true. So Atlanta got the ball to start the game. So the Vikings will get it to start the first quarter. So the Vikings scored 14 points in the second, and Atlanta scored 7. And the Vikings lead 21-17 at half. And they're getting the ball to start the third quarter, and we will mark one off for kickoff. And let's see, we got a 5 and a 1 for 6. That's for the kickoff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 10, 11. So that'd be 12:51 in the third. And we got a 3. That falls within Atlanta's defensive control factor, and a 35. We'll look at Atlanta's defensive result, and it's a punt. Atlanta does not have a punt return for a touchdown. So it remains 21-17. And momentum stays with Atlanta. They're going to get the ball here in the third quarter. They stop the Vikings on their first possession. So we have a 7. That's going to go in Atlanta's favor because they have the momentum right now. Well, let's see. We have a 6 and a 2 for 8. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 11, 15, 17. Be 10 minutes, 17 seconds in the third. Going to read from Atlanta's offensive charts, a 64, and that's a touchdown run. And that is going to be 21. Cannonball Butler. That's Butler. I should have rolled these. Okay, and it's a 6-yard touchdown. And we'll kick the extra point. Eder's good on an 11-62, and it's good. PAT is good, and it's now Atlanta 24, and the Vikings 21. And Atlanta now has increased their momentum. So we'll mark one off for the Vikings kickoff return. Can't be returned for a touchdown, and here's their drive. We got a 7 on the control die, but first let's do the time. It's going to be 8 off the clock. And 7, 12, 15. It would be at 7:15 in the third. Okay, we got a 7 on the blue and yellow die, so that goes with momentum. That's going to be coming from Atlanta's defensive control chart, and it's a 35. And a 35 is a punt. So momentum is going to stay +2 for Atlanta, and the score remains 24-21 in favor of the Falcons, and they got the ball back. All right. So we got a 6 and a 2 for 8 on the time. All right. And let's see, 12, 17, 19. Be 4:39 in the third. And we have a 7. Once again, it's coming from Atlanta's offense. And on a 66, it's a touchdown pass, and we have an upset in the making. Touchdown pass for Atlanta, and that will be Randy Johnson, 2. '21, Ray Ogden, and touchdown pass. Excuse me, look at the time on the pass. Or the distance. It is a 3-yard reception. And we'll have the extra point attempt from Eder. That's good. And it's a 10-point lead for the Falcons here in the third quarter, 34-21. They already got double momentum, so that can't be increased. Minnesota needs to try to come back here. And we got a 7, so that's going to come, well, it's going to come from the Atlanta defense. But first, let's figure out the time. 5 and 2 is 7. And we got 9, 11, 13. It'd be 2 minutes and 13 seconds left in the third. And a 24 coming from Atlanta's defense is a quarterback sack. And once again, we can't give Atlanta any more momentum. Quarterback sack, and that results in a punt. And Atlanta continues to lead 31-21 as the third quarter winds down. All right, so we got a 5 and a 1 for 6 on the time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 15. 15 seconds left. In the third quarter, or at 15 seconds in the third quarter. Got a 5. That falls within Minnesota's control, and a 55. So we're going to be looking at a field goal attempt for Bob Eder. He's good on a field goal from 11 to 41. He misses this one. And let's see, we got a 6 plus 4, or plus 5 for 11, plus 17 for 28. So it was a 28-yard field goal miss. And score remains 31-21, but the Vikings do get a shift in momentum. Now it's only +1 for Atlanta. And that's going to take us to the fourth quarter. The Vikings trailing by 10. So we got a 4 and a 1 for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5, 7, 10. And that'd be 13-30. We got a 5 on the blue and yellow dice, so that's going to come from Atlanta's defensive results. It's a 41, and it's a field goal attempt for Fred Cox. All right, so Cox is good on a field goal from 11 to 46. So the field goal is good. And let's see, multiply the red and white, that gives us 5. Add the sum of the blue and yellow, so that's 15 plus 17 is 32. So it's a 32-yard field goal. Good. And it's 31-24. The only time a field goal made it changes momentum is if it gives the team who made the field goal the lead. So Atlanta still has a +1 on the momentum. Vikings now trail by a touchdown, 31-24. And here's Atlanta's next possession. We got a 5 and a 3 for 8. We got 7, 12, 15. That'd be 10, 55 in the fourth. 3 and a 3 is a 6. And that falls within Minnesota's defensive control rating, and a 54 is a field goal attempt by Bob Etter, who missed his last one from 28 yards. Let's see what happens this time. 33 from Etter is good. And that will be a 3 times 3 is 9, plus 5 is 14, plus 17 is 31. It's a 31-yard field goal. It's good. And it's a 10-point lead again, 34-24. In favor of the Falcons. Momentum remains where it is. Minnesota's running out of time. Go. We got a 5 and a 2 for 7. And 10, 14. 8, 34. Remaining in the game. And we got a 4. That does fall within Atlanta's defensive control. And a 55, and it's a touchdown run for the Vikings. And that touchdown run is coming from 15, Bill Brown. And it is a 3-yard run. He punches it in. And an extra point from Fred Cox is good. And it is a 7-point game, 34-27 in favor. Oh, that's not true. In favor of Atlanta. Momentum stays +1 for Atlanta because the Vikings did not take the lead on that field goal. And we got 8:20 to go. Let's see, we got a 5 and a 2 for 7. And that's 8, 12, 14. Be 6, 14. We have a 9. Does not fall within the Vikings' control. So we're going to be reading from Atlanta's offensive chart. The 32 is a quarterback sack. And that's a momentum-changing play. It's going to force them to punt. Now the Vikings can return a punt for a touchdown from Charlie West. He's the only one who can do this. He needs an 11 or 12 on the red and white die and a 21 or less on the blue and yellow. So he does not do that, so it's just a punt. 34-27. But momentum shifts back to neutral. The Vikings have the ball. And let's see. On that turnover, let's see what happens. Got a 4 and a 2 for 6. And we got 8, 11, 13. It'll be 4 minutes and 13 seconds. We have a 7 on the blue and yellow die, so that means momentum comes into play. It's neutral right now, so that goes, the nod goes to the offense. So we'll be reading 24 from the Vikings offensive chart, and it is a quarterback sack. Joe Cap gets sacked. And they'll be forced to punt. No one can return a punt for a touchdown. But the momentum once again shifts to Atlanta, and it remains 34-27. The Vikings are running out of time. What's left here? 4 minutes left. So, oh, they're going to go. They're not going to try to kill the clock yet. So what do we get? We get a 6 and a 4 for 10. Well, they did a pretty good job here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we got 10, 15, 19. There's only 59 seconds left. Fourth. And what's the result here? We got 6 and 4 for a 10. That's going to fall into Minnesota's defensive control factor, and a 54 is going to be a field goal attempt. If they make this, that'll put the game away. And let's see, Eder is good on an 11-41, and he's good. Good, and it is a 1 plus 4, 5, 17, 22-yard field goal, and it makes it a 10-point lead, 37-27, and momentum stays in favor of Atlanta, and we have an upset that is about to happen here. This will be the last possession of the game, more than likely. Minnesota, the fourth. They're going to run out of time. They'll probably not even get a drive off. And let's see, 6 and 5. So yeah, that's going to be no drive. It's going to be end of game. And there you have it, a final score, 37-27 in favor of the Atlanta Falcons. And the Vikings start this 37-27. The Vikings start this playthrough by losing their home opener. And that's, like I said, end of game. I have to go back and figure this out because I missed it. At the end of the third quarter, what was the score? 31-21. So let's see, Atlanta had 17, 31 would be 14 points, 21 would be 7, and then the final 37, they had 2 field goals, right? 6. And did the Vikings score in the fourth? No, they did not. So there you have it. So we got one game in the books with this great game, Momentum Football. It does give you a bit of flavor. Now, I said you should be able to play a game in about 15 minutes. I know it took me quite a bit longer than that, but I was doing a lot of talking and did have to look up a few things. But I'll be back again in the near future with another video. If you hung out with me tonight, I appreciate it. And until then, take care.